Hello everybody. I figured I'd start this series off with an important subject of compost. So understanding compost, it's better to think about ecosystems. So an ecosystem has three niches in it: producers, consumers, and decomposers. So producers are plants and other organisms that harness the sun's energy and produce sugars. Consumers are like you and I. We consume those producers, are a different tier of those producers. And then we have decomposers, like these little microbial insects, the little pill bugs and worms and bacteria. And in like all ecosystems, there has to be a balance. So with compost piles, that balance is important. So what you need to start a compost pile is a ratio of 3-to-1 carbon to nitrogen. So source of carbon would be like pine needles, paper, fiber, things like that. A source of nitrogen is your kitchen scraps, your yard clippings, like coffee grounds, eggshells, anything that won't rot. Like, so don't put dairy products or meat or things like that in your compost pile that can rot. And if you have those ratios correct, your compost pile will not smell bad. That's a big misconception. All compost piles should smell earthy, and if they smell bad, it's usually you just need to add more carbon or add more nitrogen. You can make that call as you're the one who knows what's been adding to your pile. And then the last thing you need to do to get your compost pile going is introducing that bacteria, that yeast, and these decomposers. So a good way to do that is introducing like an herbivore manure, so like a rabbit or a cow or horse manure. You can use that, and it basically makes this pile a stomach. So things are being digested and broken down into the simplest nutrients, and that's what your garden needs. Your plants, they need these simple nutrients to make sugars and to grow. So the key to any successful garden is organic matter, which is what compost is. And also, it's a great way to recycle the nutrients and add and take away from our landfill. So landfills, they consist of 15 to 25% of them is yard clippings. So if everybody composted, we would have less landfills and better gardens. So if you ever get the question of, I have sandy soil or I have heavy clay soil, what can I do? Best answer to that is to amend it with compost. And then starting a vegetable garden, before you start your crops, you want to add about 2 inches of compost, and that'll aid in your success. So again, compost piles, you want a 3-to-1 ratio carbon to nitrogen. You need to introduce bacteria through an herbivore, and then you also need to turn your pile. So we turn our pile about every week. We do it every month when it's cold, but now that it's warming up and the pile's more active, we turn it once a week. And if you're worried about whether or not your pile's working, you can dig down to the center, and this is actually pretty warm right now. I don't know if you guys can see that heat, that steam coming off, but yeah, the pile can heat up. The pile can heat up to about 120, 140 degrees. So it gets pretty warm. Yeah, so this pile's cooking pretty good. So we'll wait till till that heat subsides and it starts getting cooler, and then once it's cold, we'll add it to our garden.